Hey, what's going on, guys? It's your boy Drew back again with another video for all you soccer fans out there. And in this one, we're going to talk about the Eastern Conference of the new 2020 MLS season, the 25th season of the MLS history, 25 years of MLS. A lot of ups, but also a lot of downs. And I just feel like there's more downs than ups, but different topic for different video. In this video, I'm going to give you guys what I think or how I think the Eastern Conference is going to play out in this new season. Again, just my opinion, just my predictions. Your predictions might be a little bit different than mine, so please don't hate me too much if I rank your favorite team lower than you think they can finish. Of course, you guys are more than welcome to comment your own finishing table down below in the comment section, because comments do help this video get more recognition and get passed around YouTube more in the algorithm or whatever YouTube world this is in. But anyway, quick two things. The Western Conference video will be out. Like the Western Conference of this topic will be out tomorrow, hopefully if I have time. Number two, thank you again to everybody who wished me a happy birthday on my most recent video. It meant a lot to me to see you guys celebrate with me. It was fun to record on my birthday. It was fun to talk to you guys on my birthday, so I had a good time. If you guys are wondering, thank you so much. Before we get started, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit the like button as well, and be sure to comment your thoughts at the end of this video and to follow me on my Twitter and Instagram handle, which will be right down here. So, without further ado, let's just get right to it. So anyway, at number 13, the team who I think is going to finish last. And by the way, since we have Inter Miami and Nashville SC joining this season in MLS, we're going to have an extra slot in each conference. I'm sure you guys already know that. But for people who don't, last season we had up to 12 teams. Now we have 13 teams in each conference. So the team finishing in last place, in third, unlucky number 13th, unfortunately, I think is going to be Chicago Fire. Oh man, I know Chicago fans are going crazy right now. But I just don't think, honestly, it's like, to be real with you guys, I don't think Chicago has much in its team right now that really catches my eye. That really says, you know what, this guy could be the star man. This guy is like definitely a standout player here in Chicago. No, like new logo, like I feel like it's a new team. Like it's just so much is going on with Chicago right now that I think it's just gonna freaking collapse as a team. And then probably start to rebuild itself as the years go on. So I think, unfortunately, Chicago, who finished in 8th place last season, are unfortunately going to, again, miss out on the playoffs and finish in dead last in their Eastern Conference. They were so close to getting to the playoffs as well last season, but I think this season they'll be a lot far off. They did, I feel like they didn't sign many players who really stood out to me, any star players, any big-name players who they could, like, really try to spark some life into this team. They lost big players like Bastian Schweinsteiger, Dax McCarthy, Nicholas Gaitan, just to name a few. Like, those are big key players who have left this team, who leave really big holes. So hopefully for Chicago fans' sake, they are not in the 13th place. So to your boy Drew, I think Chicago is in 13th place. Now, moving on. The team finishing in the 12th place above Chicago Fire is, of course, FC Cincinnati. And I'm sure a lot of people are not really too surprised, because Cincinnati did finish in 12th place last year, which was technically last place, but this year it won't be. It'll be second to last because of the extra slot in each conference. But still, nonetheless, FC Cincinnati, I think, is going to finish in second to last, 12th place, right ahead of Chicago. I feel like those two might be could swap places, but the way I see it is I think Cincinnati has a bigger they made some better signings in Chicago. They brought in Yuya Kubo, a nice winger there for Chicago, to add some firepower in the attacking line for Cincinnati, which is something I think they really needed last season. And of course, the biggest signing, I think, the most popular signing they've made is the Dutch international Jurgen Locadia, who is signing now as the main striker, the main forward, the main transfer, the biggest transfer they've made in history, I believe, in their own history. Their 2-year history in MLS. The biggest signing they have is Jurgen Locadia, and I'm excited to see how this dude is going to shine here in MLS. I really hope he does do well. Just a couple years ago, he was worth lots. He was worth like about $20 million as a transfer a couple of seasons ago, but he's kind of fallen off a bit. But hopefully, this transfer to Cincinnati could spark some life, some new life into Locadia to really become a goal scoring machine for this team in MLS, and I would love to see Cincinnati really succeed because they are a new team. I like to root for underdogs as well as my own team, which is Philadelphia. But I think, nonetheless, even with Locadia, I think that Cincinnati still has some holes to fill that they have not filled yet, hence why I think they will finish in second to last. Coming in 11th place is Montreal Impact. Look, I know I kind of raved about Montreal Impact in my CONCACAF Champions League review of the first leg of the round 16 because they were the first team so far on the day they played to really score some good goals and really, make an impact, no pun intended, in the first leg of the round 16. But nonetheless, they did concede 2 goals that were unanswered in that same game. They do have a new manager in Thierry Henry, who really didn't do well as a manager for Monaco. He got sacked pretty quickly, and now he's in the manager of Montreal Impact. The Impact definitely lost players like Daniel Lovitz. They lost Piatti. So 2 big players of their starting 11 last year are gone. And I feel like they haven't really bought or acquired many players who could fill those spots, really bring some life like that. Of course, their main player is going to be Bojan, the former Stoke City and Barcelona prodigy player, who I think had a pretty decent season last year with Montreal Impact, who did finish in 9th place last year. But I think this year it's just going to be like a rebuilding phase or I feel like Thierry Henry needs some time here with the Impact to really shape them into the team that he wants. And I think it's going to take a couple seasons, so they might be in maybe 1 or 2 seasons they'll be like towards the bottom in a rebuilding phase. But I think that if they have fan support, if they have like the board support for Montreal to get new signings, to get better signings, get better players, or develop good players, I think they could definitely finish higher up to this table. But for this year, I think they will unfortunately finish in 11th place. And what team will they finish under? That, of course, is going to be in 10th place. That team will be Orlando City, a team who finished in 11th place last year in the Eastern Conference. I think will have a little bit more hope to finish maybe a little bit higher than that this year. They do have a new manager, the former FC Dallas manager, who's coming in. Hopefully he can spark some new life into this team. Hopefully he can bring in some new ideas and new tactics. Sorry, I'm a little sick. Of course, Nani is going to be the star player of this team. Hopefully Dwyer can find some form and start scoring some goals again, because I feel like once he switched over to be a USA national team player, he made like 2-3 big appearances. Like he made some waves, and then after that, some injuries, boom, he was gone forever. Now I feel like he's under the radar once again. Now he needs to really spark some life into himself, really get some better form in him to really be, talked about more like he used to be. And of course, with the new managers, it always takes a little while to get the players into the new managers' like tactics and understand how the manager wants them to play his game. And of course, the goalkeeper position was a position that they did fill this past transfer season in January. They did acquire Pedro Gaese, the Peruvian international goalkeeper, who I raved about once they signed him. I gave him a lot of praise, and I think I was right in doing so, because he is a really good goalkeeper. Hopefully, he can help Orlando City finish higher up this table. But for me, so far, I see them finishing only in 10th place. All right, moving on to the team who will finish in 9th place. I believe that is going to be the New York Red Bulls. This could be a shock to some of you hardcore New York Red Bull fans out there, and I know you're out there. I know you're out there. But you guys can also agree that this team is not the same team used to be back in the day, like maybe like 5-6 years ago. This team used to be the team that everyone feared in MLS, the team that everyone wanted to be like. They want to be successful like the New York Red Bulls. But I feel like those days are long gone now. This team, I think, Red Bulls is another team, I think, who is in another rebuilding phase, or a team who is trying to find their way again, like a new path. They're going to a new path in like their success, and they are going to, I think it'll just take a little while to get there. They're going to take a little while to really find themselves again, find this new team that they're building. They do have star players like, of course, Aaron Long at the back. They've got the Paraguayan international Kaku, who hasn't been his best. I think he wasn't at his best last year. I think he has lots of potential. I think he could be better than he was last season. Of course, last season they did finish in 6th place in the playoff spot, but I really think that they are not at the level of these other bigger Eastern Conference teams to really compete into the playoffs again. I think they're just going to miss out just by a little bit. They did lose big players like Luis Robles, the goalkeeper, striker Bradley Wright Phillips, and even right back Kamar Lawrence. 3 big players they did lose, who I think they haven't really filled spots with that well. They did buy a new goalkeeper, David Jansen, from the Dutch league, but I don't really see much potential in him so far yet. Ryan Miero might be the star goalkeeper now that Robles is gone. And if you look at the roster and see the strikers, they're just a bunch of young strikers who aren't really big name household names in MLS yet. No one has made a name for themselves yet, but hopefully this could be the season that they do make a name for themselves and take over the mantle that Bradley Wright Phillips has left for them. But for me, I think they're gonna ninth place is a pretty decent finish for this team, especially the kind of roster they have right now. No one really screams out star player besides like Aaron Long and Kaku, but ninth place it is for New York Red Bulls. The team who's going to just miss out on the playoffs by one spot is, I think, going to be Inter Miami, coming in 8th place for their inaugural season of the MLS. I know Inter Miami fans and the club itself is going to want to have an inaugural season like Atlanta United did, but I unfortunately think they are not going to be that successful. Only because I feel like this team, even though it's pretty decently well-rounded, it has a pretty, each position has a pretty recognizable name in that position, but I still think that this team is a little bit of a mess. They talked about having a star player, like, really, really expensive or star striker, star player that would bring some star power and sell some jerseys here in MLS for Inter Miami, but they really didn't get that. They did get Rodolfo Pizarro, who is, I think, a really, really talented Liga MX player. He just came from Monterrey, who I think is going to be there's obviously their star player, the main man, their number 10, the guy who they're going to look for to really make some chances to score some goals, but also just be the heart of the team in midfield and really control everything on the field. I think he's going to be the go-to guy for this team. But I think this team does have some pretty decent players. I mean, they do have Luis Robles from New York Red Bulls, who we just talked about. He's going to be in goal. Hopefully, he has some gas in the tank left for this team to really make a name for himself for Inter Miami. They do have strikers like Juan Agudelo, who I think is okay. They do have Robbie Robinson, whatever. Will Trapp in midfield. You guys know how I feel about Will Trapp. But at the MLS level, I think he does really well. So this is a really good signing for them. He's an experienced MLS player, a veteran in MLS. He could bring some stability and some solidness here not just on the field, but also in the locker room and in their, as like player-to-player shit like that. They do have Alvis Powell, who I think is okay. Let's see, who else do they have? Oh, of course, their first ever designated player, Mateus Pellegrini from Estudiantes, who is 19-year-old winger, who hasn't really shown, at least to me, too much potential. But the way people talk about him seems like he's going to be like one of the biggest stars, or could be one of the biggest stars, not just for this team, but in MLS. So hopefully with him and Pizarro controlling this team's attacking sense, hopefully it's a more successful season. But for me, I think 8th place will be the finish for David Beckham's Inter Miami. So who is going to go into the playoffs? So it's teams 1 through 7, if you don't know. Teams 1 through 7 are the teams who get into the playoffs. Obviously, number 1, if they have a lot of points, they win the Supporters' Shield. But 1 through 7 are in the playoffs. Let's see who will finish in 7th place. And to me, I think that's going to be New England Revolution. The Revolution did finish last season in 7th place with having Bruce Arena only like for half the season. So now, this year, they will have Bruce Arena for the full season. And that could actually make a really big difference. He can actually start right from the bottom with their team, right from the beginning, and mold it the way he wants it, instead of coming in and taking over a team who was kind of in disarray, a team who really was at the bottom of the Eastern Conference, and really actually like just revolutionized it, and just, no pun intended, just really brought it up right back to the top, into the playoff spot. But I think 7th place again is the fate for Bruce Arena's New England Revolution here in the Eastern Conference. They didn't really lose too many of their star players or too many solid players. They did lose, obviously, Juan Agudelo, Jalil Anibaba, but for the most part, no one really crucial to their team's success or see the way their team is set up. They have a good goalkeeper in Matt Turner. They've got last season's MLS Newcomer of the Year, Carlos Gil, who's had 10 goals and 14 assists. Last season's watching is actually really, really good for the Spaniard. They've got new acquisitions, Adam Buxa, the Polish striker, young Polish striker, might I add. And, of course, Gustavo Bau last year had a really good season last season with the New England Revolution. So I think their attacking line is actually pretty decent. It really does impress me. Defenders, Dilemma, Andrew Farrell. Like I think Alexander Butler, a new acquisition in a left back, former Manchester United player who never really played for Man U that much. But they gotta get that money somehow, and they really gotta plug that it's a former Man U player, because then it makes him sound better than it really is. But I think this team is a pretty solid team, but not that solid. It's kind of like a half solid. It's like slime. Okay, you can still mold it, but it's not super solid. That's a terrible reference for you Revolution fans out there. But don't be afraid, because you guys will make it to the playoffs. I wholeheartedly believe that Bruce Arena will take this team to the playoffs and hopefully have some more success than they did last year when they lost in the first round against Atlanta United, which really can't blame them. But 7th place it is for New England. All right, I hope you guys are ready for another shocker here. Coming in at 6th place is, of course, Toronto FC. Boom. That was controversial. I know some of you guys out there like, what? Toronto FC made it to the MLS Cup final last year. What are you talking about, Drew? Well, first of all, they lost the final. Second of all, they lost the Canadian Championship final too. Also, they were eliminated early in the round of 16 in the CONCACAF Champions League. And also, they finished 4th place last year, which actually is not bad. They did really well. But what I think is going to really affect this team the most, and why I think they'll be in 6th place, is 2 things. One, I think there's better teams now this season who have made good acquisitions, like good transfers. They have a more solid team, or a more well put together team, a team that knows what its identity is. And I think teams that are just a little bit better than Toronto. Now, look, I've been saying that these teams could swap places anytime for me, but I think Toronto finishing in 6th place is my prediction. I mean, I know it is. They got good players like, Marky Delgado in center midfield, Westberg in goal, or Alex Bono even, however they want to start it off. Let's see. Of course, Josie Altidore, and that's the other factor that's important to Toronto. Their main striker, their guy they rely on for the goals the most, is Josie Altidore, a player who is always injury prone. He's gonna get injured twice this season. I bet you guys, Josie Altidore will get injured twice this season and have long injury recovery days. So, Michael Bradley, of course, in midfield, like another veteran of the game. But Pozuelo is going to be their main guy. Pozuelo is going to be the main guy in terms of creating chances for Josie Altidore if he's still around, and also for just scoring chances himself. He is, of course, everyone says, the new Giovinco for Toronto, yeah. But I still think that Toronto is not the same Toronto it was a couple years ago, or even freaking last year. I think there's better teams who could pull one over on Toronto and make them finish in 6th place. But nonetheless, I still think this is a very good team, a team who I think has a good head coach in Greg Vanney. But we'll see what he can do with this team, if he can get the best out of them and really have them finish maybe even higher than your boy Drew's prediction. But for me, 6th place seems the way it's going to go for Toronto. Coming in here at 5th place is going to be, for me, DC United. Look, the DC United has made some tremendous acquisitions this transfer market recently, right before the season. They have done their work. They've done really good. The one thing that's really a big negative for them is just recently Paul Arriola did suffer an injury. Now he had an ACL surgery, so he might be out the whole season. So that's going to be a huge blow. He's a huge part of DC United's attacking sense, a huge part of their squad. This is going to be a really big blow for them. I did have them higher up in this list, in this table, but after the injury to Paul Arriola, I feel like that will affect this team going forward. So I did drop them down just one spot below into the 5th place. Right? It's 5th place? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep, it's 5th place. Sorry, I'm lost all over the place here. 5th place. Last season, they did finish, of course, in 5th place again. And it may seem like, Drew, you're just copying from last season's finish place. No, it's just the way it works out. So I feel like this, like I said, this team was finishing in 4th place for me this year. But after that injury to Paul Arriola, I think that's going to be a big no-no. That's going to be a big bad. And, of course, losing players like Wayne Rooney, Luciano Costa, those are 2 big players they had in their team that were really successful for them during their time there. But they did make some really good transfers here and some good acquisitions. Of course, Bill Hamid, goalkeeper. But they did bring in Julian Gressel from Atlanta United, which was a transfer for Atlanta fans that were like, dude, what the hell? We wanted to keep Gressel. At least that's what I've heard from fans. Some of you guys might think maybe you guys didn't want him, but from the fans that I saw from Atlanta, they really were shocked that Gressel went to DC United, or that Atlanta let Gressel move on. Of course, the biggest signing, I think, Edison Flores is the club record signing from Liga MX's Montreal. I think the Peruvian international, this guy, like I said, I made a video on him before. You guys can find it on the channel. Edison Orejas Flores is going to be the star player for DC, hopefully for the next couple years, if he stays that long. Hopefully. I think this guy is going to light up this league. His technical ability on the ball, his finishing, his passing, his work rate. I think this guy is going to be the real deal. Hopefully. He will be the next, I don't know, Wayne Rooney. Not really. I think he probably could do better than Wayne Rooney. I don't know. That was controversial. I didn't mean that. And of course, Emil Assad, also another player who had 21 assists and 16 goals in his previous 2 spells in MLS. I think he is going to be a good signing for them, a good key factor for this team. But this team, I think, is going to have, or this team does have some good, solid players here. Like I said, Kamara up front, the striker, Bill Hamid at the back, Steve Burnborough, and the center midfield. I'm sorry, I can't even talk right now. As a center back, Russell Canuse, Edison Flores, Julian Gressel, Junior Moreno. Like, these players, it looks like a good, solid team. I'm excited to see this team. Of course, they're my rival team for my Philly team, but it's still going to be very excited to see how this team does this season. I think they will have a really, really good year, and they will definitely make the playoffs, finishing in 5th place. Coming in 4th place is going to be your boy Drew's favorite team, the Philadelphia Union. Now, like I said, I did have them in 5th place, in DC in 4th, but after the injury to Paul Arriola, I did kind of switch them around, because to me, I had some trouble placing them because they're a little interchangeable. But after the injury, I was like, you know what, Philadelphia might have the edge over DC, and that might be a little more biased, but who cares? Like, that's my team. Humans have a little bias. You guys just have to, understand that. But look, this team had the best season they had ever in its own history here in MLS. Last year, they finished in 3rd place, which surprised me, which surprised a lot of people. No one really thought they would do that well, and I was really surprised and proud of this team. I was actually proud to be a Union fan for the first time, because I'm not gonna lie, before that, they fucking sucked. Okay, and you guys, you Philly fans out there know that we suck. But last year, we made it big. We did good. Now, this year, I think we could do just as good. Maybe not as good, but I think we will finish high up the Eastern Conference table. Now, players, they have made some good signings with Jago Caneses, Matej Overak. They did lose players like Marco Fabian, who really didn't impress me at all during his time in Philadelphia Union, which was kind of a surprise. Like, there was so much hype on having Fabian, a Liga MX star, there, but he really just kind of was a, flop. They did lose Austin Trusty, but not a big deal. The big players, of course, Alejandro Bedoya, Andre Blake in goal. Bedoya is going to be the senior midfielder, the veteran, the more experienced guy, like the ex-USA international. I don't know why he stopped being called up, probably because there's better players now, but he will be the star man there alongside Brendan Aronson, who's going to help him get some guidance there. I think Brendan Aronson is a young prospect, really good young prospect, who's going to be the start attacking midfielder for the Union this season to provide balls for Andrew Wootwin, for Sergio Santos, for the Polish guy Kasper P. I can never say his last name, so I never do. Even at the back, we're filled in with freaking Mark McKenzie, Jack Elliott as their 2 star center backs. Mark McKenzie is a player who I think is very underrated and very underlooked here in MLS. Gaddis, Wagner, 2 great fullbacks. This team is stacked. This team is ready to go. And I think the most important thing that's going to be a big factor in this team's success this season is their momentum. They're on fire right now. They're happy of how good they had a season They know they had a great season last year, and hopefully that momentum is going to help them. It's going to carry on to this season for your boy Drew's sake. So 4th place it is for the Union. Now, coming in at 3rd place is going to be Columbus Crew. Now, this is going to be a big shocker for you guys, but I feel like there's something going on here in Columbus Crew that it might be under the radar, might be kind of overlooked. I think this team is building a really good, strong, winning team who could push for a good top 3 finish. But 3rd place, I think, is where they might fall. They did lose players, of course, like Higuain, Guzman, and Will Trapp, big players for them. But I still think they have enough players. They've brought in some good quality talent. They still have Zardes, who, like I said, Zardes sucks nationally, but for club level, I think Zardes here in MLS is tremendous. So especially for the crew. Darlington Nagbe, a new player here they got from Atlanta United, which was actually a crazy transfer for me, at least. Another crazy shocker that I did not see coming. He's going to provide some good versatility, some good play there in midfield. And, of course, they've acquired a new young Argentine playmaker, Lucas Zelarayan, who could be a very, very good, talented player here. Or at least he seems to be already a nice talent that Columbus Crew has picked up to really be in charge of the attacking sense of their midfield going forward. Of course, they have Pedro Santos, Zardes, Diaz, Arthur alongside Nagbe in the midfield is going to be tremendous and exciting to see. Eloy Room and goalkeeper, I think, is probably the best replacement you could have post, Stefan era there. Zach Stefan leaving, of course, like last season or whatever. But I think Eloy Room is doing a pretty good, decent job there in the goalkeeper spot. Better than their old keeper. I forget what his name is, Bendik or whatever. He sucked. But I think that this team looks like it's going to be something. They have Mensah, new acquisition, Wormgore, that just got signed for the center back position. He's going to be tremendous there in the defense for Columbus Crew. And I think that this team could push, like I said, for a top 3 finish. Third place, I think, is not too far off. And if I'm completely wrong and they really totally suck, please come back to this video and just trash talk me, because, like I said, comments help the algorithm here. So, third place, not bad. But they did finish 10th place last season, so that's a really big jump from 10th to 3rd place. But I feel like there's something going on with this team that it's rubbing me the wrong way. Like I feel like this team is going to be very successful this year. So, for you Columbus fans out there, congratulations. You too, Greg Berhalter. Unfortunately. 2 teams left, New York City FC and Atlanta United. Which one will finish top of the table? And which one will finish 2nd place? Well, 2nd place, I got to give it to Atlanta United. And look, just like last season, they finished in 2nd place, just missing out on the top spot. I feel like New York City had a tremendous season last year. I'll get to them in a second. But for Atlanta United, not the team they were 2 seasons ago in their inaugural season, but still a fire team, still a team that in the attacking sense is dangerous, still a team that wants to win everything. It's still a team to be feared by every team in the MLS in both conferences. I think they will have a good season. I think they'll finish in 2nd place. They did lose players like Darlington Nagbe to Columbus, Julian Gressel to DC, but I think they made good acquisitions as well. Fernando Meza as a center back, Brooks Lennon from Real Salt Lake, Matheus Rossetto, Brazilian midfielder who could really have a big impact. A lot of people have been raving about him. A lot of people are talking about how good he is and what he can bring to Atlanta United's midfield. Along with his, they have Zico Barto, Pity Martinez, Laurentowicz, I can never say his name. I suck at saying names. Brad Guzan is pretty solid, I think, at the goalkeeper position. They got Meza as a center back, like I said, alongside young prospect who's doing tremendously well for Atlanta and the national team, hopefully, and Miles Robinson as a young center back there, who I think is going to be a starter this season. Of course, if injuries don't plague this team, which they are now, if everybody's fit, I think this team is going to be dangerous. Of course, Joseph Martinez as a striker. You guys know about Joseph Martinez. I don't really need to talk about it much. But like I said, I think this team is going to have enough to push for either the first spot or have to settle for 2nd place once again. And I think they will ultimately ultimately finish in 2nd place. Regardless of how good their squad is, I think New York City is where it's at. So speaking of New York City FC, I think that this team will once again finish in the top spot in the Eastern Conference like they did last season. They do have a new coach with Ryan D'Elia taking over. Hopefully he can bring some even more spark into this team, some more momentum, some more new ideas to really help this team win the top of the table here like they did last year. Look, this team wasn't really surprising me too much. I mean, of course, last season they had a good season last season, so I was already kind of keeping my eye on them. But after their freaking performance in the CONCACAF Champions League round of 16 first leg, that's a mouthful. After that performance with their new striker Aber, who scored a freaking hat trick, dude, this team looks like it's the real freaking deal. Maxi Morales, Aber, Alexander Ring, three players who are going to be tremendous at key parts of this team. I am excited to see how Aber does in the MLS. We saw how he does in the CONCACAF Champions League. I would love to see how he would fare here in the MLS week in, week out. Hopefully he has the same momentum. I think that would be freaking awesome to see this guy light it up in the attacking sense. They did get players like Gideon Zalela, this Thoranison, left back, Icelandic left back. I think this team is they might not have many players who like, you know, stick out as like a big name player or stick out as like an expensive signing or a player who was like a household name, but I think this team has like a winning mentality that no other team here can match. I think this team is on fire right now. That momentum, like I said, just for the Union has momentum to go into the season. I think this team has even more momentum, especially after their performance in the CONCACAF Champions League. I am excited to see what this team's going to bring this season. To me, number one spot, I think it's going to be for them. So that pretty much wraps this long ass video up. I'm sorry for you guys who are still watching. Thank you so much, because this took a long time for me to make. My thing already is in an hour, but of course it won't be that long for you guys. But I would love to know your guys' thoughts on my list, and also let me know your list down below and how you guys think these teams will finish in the Eastern Conference. As always, I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Western Conference prediction of this segment. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching. Thanks for kicking it with me, and I'll see you next time. Peace.